Okay, so you guys know the deal mostly. Hi, you know who I am. I'm Alexis, right? We have our plan. Rob's going to do the questions, and then we can start whatever direction you guys want. You can ask directly. We already said you can ask whatever you want. He will probably be pretty direct, and he may ask you things, and he may ask you if you understand, if it's clear, or if he needs to take you in a different direction to, so it can be, because he wants it to be embodied for you, like actually get what, you know.
So can we ask personal questions?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yep. And I probably will use the recording, but nobody can see your faces, and we said names before, so ask whatever it is that you'd like, and I can always edit it if we really want to. That's not a problem. I think that's it, right? Okay.
Is this going to end up on your YouTube channel?
Maybe, if it's interesting, which it will be. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, it's fine. Make everybody aware, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. It just depends how it is, and if anybody wants their piece out, that's not a problem. And if we would collectively like to just keep it private, we can do that too. I'm kind of cool with whatever. Yeah, I just like to record them because there's always, so a lot of the things that he says have to do with more than just answering you. Like, it's very pertinent to lots of other things. And so, you know, Rob will ask a question, but it might be really pertinent to something Jen's experiencing, or vice versa, or whatever. So, yeah, cool. Okay, and then he'll tell you, I'll go in, and then he'll just say that we're ready, that we'll begin. That's usually what he says. And then you just start talking to him. Cool. Okay. Oh, these chairs are funny. We may begin.
Hey Simon, my name is Rob, and we are. There's a few questions that we had for you. Can I ask them?
Yes.
So there was a question about why this group is here together in this retreat here at this at Omega.
Yes, there's a completion of a learning that is happening for each of you. There's a completion of a cycle. There's a completion of a knowingness within each of you, and that is why you're coming together in this way. And each of you also have the cyclical connections that you have with other beings outside of what the grouping is that is right now. And you're each having these tendrils out to these other individuals that are having these completions. And what we're discussing with the completion is around the negotiation of the way in which you human, yes, the way in which you negotiate. Some individuals describe it as a third dimensional experience, but it is really the physicality outside of moreness. Yes, it's an experience of only being one thing. Yes, of being the human only, of being the animal human. Yes, and what is happening is you're moving into this understanding of the wisdom beingness that you are, and allowing for there to be space for that wisdom beingness to be within your corporeal nature more and more. Yes, and what is happening is that there's a completion of that in some way, and each of you is bringing yourself to this greater completion to be able to move into this next cycle of being able to remember more clearly of whom you are and the way that you choose to demonstrate yourselves to one another. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. What does Pluto in Aquarius look like in 10 years, this period in which we're entering as humanity's entering?
Yes, it is an experience of, in a way, this interstellar experience. It's this experience of knowing beyond what you know in the moment. And it's a curious thing to be able to think about the future in this way, and in the nowness. And when you're in a physical body, there's a nowness, awareness. There's only the now in the linear way. Yes, there's not a nowness in the non-physical way, in the way that I'm able to see things. It's quite different, experience things, if you will. Yes. What is occurring is that there will be an interstellar, and what we mean by interstellar is this connection to the moreness of it all, yes, which is quite a difficult thing to understand. Many of the things that will be shifting will happen over time, and some of them will happen in an instant, where there's almost a forgetting of the way it even with just a moment, the way the energy even passed through you previously. Yes, there will be this moment where things shift, and then there would be other parameters that it is a slow process. Yes. And there will also be a muchness to the way in which non-structure structure is being formulated. Yes, the way you move through your beingness, the way that you exchange information will be quite important, and where the way that you exchange it with groups will be quite important. And there will be this passageway of being able to do so in a much more non-linear way. Yes, there was a conversation earlier having to do with telepathy in a way. Yes, and being able to hear oneself and hear each other. But what is quite interesting is there's a step that is important prior to this opening in more individuals, and this has to do with the reclamation of sovereignty. This is much important, because if you do not reclaim your personal sovereignty, you're not able to honor it within other beings, and if you're not able to honor it within other beings, you have no right and no honoring and being able to passage messages and passage information and data in a non-verbal way. Yes, because there could be a lack of trust. Yes, a lack of discernment. But once you are able to honor the sovereignty within yourself and within each and every being, then there's a granting of that beingness. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That covered a few questions here, and I guess the next question is related to extraterrestrials, and I was curious. The Zeta Reticulates, or the Greys, that are talked about quite a bit. There's one line of thinking in which these are time travelers amongst humans' evolutionary trajectory, whereas the Pleiadians are across another timeline. And I'm just curious what you have to say about that, if that is indeed true, or if these are in fact timelines from our future, or if these are more extraterrestrial alien civilizations reaching us through that way.
Yes, in the way that when you discuss even future beings, if they are not of the current dimensional, this is the aspect that is quite important. The planet itself is having an evolutionary process. She is moving into a different dimensional experience, yes? And in her moving into a different dimensional experience, then all beings that pertain on that planet in the future is outside of the terrestrial of what she is now. Yes, so they are still extraterrestrial, even though they are of the earth. They are not of the current earth that you inhabit. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The beginning beings, those beings had a malformation. They had a very critical malformation, and it caused for there to be some inconsistencies and discrepancies in the way in which they pass love information. They don't have the capacity to do that in a way that allows for there to be an honoring of sovereignty, because it is much important for there to be an exchange of love information, and all beings, all consciousness, all expansion, all consciousness is expansive in nature. Yes, there's a lack of that. There's a contractionness within them, which is why they engage in behaviors that are quite contractive at times. Yes, and one could say it isn't correct to call a whole group of beings a one thing, because you have individuation within each, but they also choose to engage with a hive mind in a way. Yes, so it is a bit different than the way individuals and human beings interact now. And there is an example of being able to exchange information, the way that human beings are moving towards an invitation to sovereignly. This is why we speak of this peace. This is why we speak of this sovereignty. It's why it's so important to be able to honor the sovereignty first before you're able to exchange information in a vast way. Because if you don't do this, and if you only do it on an intellectual curiosity level, you miss the compassion piece, you miss the love piece, you miss the piece around that is most important, which is what caused the malformation. Yes, this piece around simply doing something out of a curiosity, simply doing something out of intellect, simply doing something that's outside of the purposeness of the expansive nature of love and beautiness. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Now the Pleiadian alternative, could that be seen as a separate timeline, as something that humanity
yes
can
that
reach?
is quite it. Yes,
Yeah.
there are many possibilities. There's also the trajectory that you all are on, which is neither of those things. Yes. Yes, they're merely echoes and examples in a way. Yes. Yes.
Okay. What could you tell us more about the Pleiadian purpose?
Yes, and they, quite interestingly, they operate in a collective, but it is different than the hive, yes, because it is quite different. It's quite interesting because the collective, each of the beings, they have a right to demonstrate their beingness. They have a right to share in which their thoughts, share in which their aspirations and their dreams and their connections to one another in a way that is quite loving, yes? And there's a quite differenceness of being able to do this collectively because it is occurring across almost a beautiful exchange of, think about the molecules in a river, yes? The molecules in an ocean, the molecules together of a thing that just flows within it, yes? There isn't anyone in charge, yes? But with a hive mind, there is a differenceness, yes? If you tune into the energy of each, you can feel the difference, yes? There was a particular question having to do with what you would like to know more about the Pleiadians and with the way that they express themselves.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a well-formulated question related to Pleiadians, but what sort of wisdom, you've talked a lot about self-autonomy and boundaries in a healthy, sovereign way. What would be some of the suggestions and advice that Pleiadians would give for humanity now?
Oh yes, but that is for them to say. But a big aspect of their wish for humanity is for there to be many multiples of these positive timelines in which the Earth is able to continue. Yes, and this is the intention of being able to illustrate a possibility. Yes, illustrate a possibility so that the evolving now can be different than the now that they have experienced. This is a very interesting thing. Yes, this evolving now that we have. Yes, and as we move forward, and this beingness of each individual of being able to be connected to different timelines. And the timeline thing is quite an interesting thing as well. The way in which you travel each. Yes, and this is particular to you. There is some question of some experiences that you're having. This is having to do with the timeline experiences. Yes, we may continue that at a later time if you'd like, but that is an important thing to be discussing, this experience of timelines, that there are many innumerable timelines, yes? And this is the intention of beings that have a positive nature, and what we mean by positive nature is quite an expansive nature, allowing for there to be continuation, because what must be remembered is in a contractive nature, things can only contract it to one point, and when they contract to that point, then they become a black hole, and when they are a black hole, the energy can be cultivated in this way. Yes, this is why there's energies and beings that would like to direct humanity in that way so that the energy can be cultivated. Yes, and the beings who do not wish this to be happening, that wish for there to be a sovereignty of the planet and wish there to be a sovereignty of individuals, what is happening is there's an encouragement, a modeling of, oh, look what is possible. So as many individual timelines as possible can have this possibility of expansion. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot to process there, and thank you. Let's see. Now, gosh, I wish I spent more time thinking of the right questions. But I know a number of us have some questions.
Yes.
And would it be okay if certain people are to ask? Is there anyone that wants to go first that has a question?
I'll go. I'm Jen.
Yes.
It's a personal question.
Yes.
I feel like I'm blocked in some way, and actually I feel like I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out the answer to be given like a proper way of doing things, or a proper way of going about something, and it feels like I just can't figure it out. I feel blocked in a certain way. Do you have any advice for unblocking whatever it is I feel like is
Yes,
blocked?
there's nothing to figure out. Yes, this is the first thing. Oftentimes when there is a blocking, it isn't quite a blocking, it's more of the way in which you are perceiving something, the way in which you are engaging with it, really. Yes, the way you are engaging with it is as if it is a problem that needs to be solved, yes, rather than a beingness that needs to be expressed.
Makes sense.
Yes, when you tune into that beingness, then you simply move into that beingness, yes? And when you are not in that beingness, you are not, oh, how do I move through that? Because you aren't that thing that can do that thing. And once you're the thing that can do the thing, then you can do it, yes?
That was very helpful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else have a question?
Hi Simon, I'm Marcos.
Yes.
I wanted to go back to, I think, what you were saying about timelines, and that some people wanted us to move towards, I can't remember how you couched it, and whereas others wanted sort of to go in a different direction. I think it was like the hive mind.
Yes.
yeah, what would you recommend?
In what way? I would recommend expansion, of course.
Expansion?
What exactly? Yes, why would you want to be simply oh, this is quite distressing. Why would you choose that? Yes, this is not the way at all. This is not the way at all. This is not the way, because what we are discussing here is a lack of sovereignty. Each individual does not belong to itself, and it belongs to something else. That is not correct. That is not correct at all. This idea of it is most important to remember that your differentiation as a soul, your beingness, yes, is expressing itself, and it has every right to express itself, just like every other being decides to express itself. Yes, and this concept of relinquishing that, which is something that is being controlled and oftentimes almost manipulated into convincing individuals that, oh, this is the correct way, but it is not at all. It is not at all, and it isn't simply because I would like it or another being would like it. It has to do with, it allows for you to do what you like. It allows for you to move forward in the way that you would like to, yes? But when you are in the energy of contraction, yes, which is fear and dogma and difficulty, and this idea that it can't even move forward, and all of this difficulty, yes, what that does is it creates this contractive energy, yes? And the contractive energy is only possible because you do not remember that you own yourself, yes? Nothing owns you. You are your own individuated consciousness of source consciousness, yes?
Yes, okay.
Yes.
And what's the best way of achieving that personal sovereignty?
Yes, it's his access point. You tune into your access points. Yes, you tune into your beingness. You may do this at this time. You tune into the center of your center. Yes, you access points within yourself. And these are only access points for yourself. They're not access points for anything else. Yes, and you're tuning into yourself, which is allowing yourself to come more into yourself. Yes, your beingness, your soulness, whatever you'd like to say, your individuated consciousness comes through yourself at certain access points, and you may have physical sensations when this is occurring, when it's coming in through you. And what is occurring is also there is a healing that is quite necessary. Something that is quite necessary is continuing to have healings for yourself. And it is not about brokenness. The way that we discuss healings isn't about brokenness at all. It has to do with creating more space, yes, within each being, creating more space for oneself. And when you do that, you are able to remember more and more, and you're able to have less fear. Yes, the less fear that there is, being, of course, this physical structure that you are in, it requires fear mechanism. It requires the adrenals. It requires all of these things to keep yourself physically safe, because yours is quite squishy, yes? And in that squishiness, it is important to keep it safe, yes? And in keeping it safe, there was a mechanism that was able to be controlled in a way to allow you to feel more fear and more fear in ways that were not correctness, yes? Think of anything that you are afraid of that actually does not harm you, that it isn't something that you need to action. It is simply a mental fear, yes, rather than a physical safety fear, yes? And so that is a way, is being able to be aware of these fears that you have and allowing them to shift through your body, yes, shift through your beingness, allow for there to be a healing, which is much like what you are learning this week, is simply another way to access that point, to access more of yourself, to be able to, there be a release into your higherness, yes?
Thank you.
Yes.
So then a general but personal question. Any messages for me?
Yes. It is quite important for you to be returning your phone calls. It is quite important for you to be returning your phone calls, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Is that quite clear?
Yes, thanks.
Yes. Is that a completion?
Okay, hi, Simon.
Yeah.
It's Isabel here. Nice to meet you. I'm going to ask you which form or way, I had the question and now it's not clear in my head. Which form or way should I be using astrology in my business for the people, for the collective? Which would be the best way or form of astrology that I could share with the collective?
The way you would most like to. Are you asking specifically the type of astrology to be practicing, or the way in which you're presenting it to individuals?
Yes.
Yes, this will be altering quite often. Yes, this will be a fluidity to it. Yes, it's quite important for you to, within your formness, to be feeling what is most correct. So if I told you one thing, the energy would shift and it would no longer be correct. So it wouldn't be correct for me to give you only one pathway for this, yes? Most important to know that it will move and change and shift, and there will be a movement and a moment when it is correct to do it in a group setting, and there will be almost like a class, and there will be other moments when it is important to do it as a single way, yes, as one to another individual, yes, and there will be other times where you're doing all sorts of different things. Yes, it's quite important that there is a movement to your practice, and there always is the movement is quite important. There's not a single structure that is correct, yes.
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 Okay, and yes, do you have a special message for me?
Yes. There's an openness with self that is necessary. An openness with self in terms of the way in which you perceive your feet, the way you perceive your movements forward, yes? The way you perceive, as a being walks, you typically walk with your eyes forward, yes? But there, when you are uncertain, you bring your head down and look at your feet, yes? To be certain. When you are walking in an area you are unsure of, if your footing feels uncomfortable or different than the path, if you see ahead that, oh, something rocky is coming up, you look down, yes?
Yes.
This is the message, to be looking down as well as up, to be aware of your feet, to be aware of, this is your physical, but it also is the non-physical, this is the esoteric sort of idea, yes? Of looking down around you, and when your pathway forward, not only looking front and forward, but also having an awareness of the ground beneath you, looking at your feet that carry you forward, yes?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Do you guys want to go first and come with me?
Hi Simon, this is Marcela. I have, I think, 2 or 3 questions. What do they mean when they talk about the Pleiadian angels? Because I've been told about the existence of them. So is it like angels or extraterrestrial people?
Are you asking if Pleiadians are angels or extraterrestrials?
Yes.
It is quite an interesting way to describe with the words that human beings have, because as we spoke about in the very beginning, with the shifting of the different planetary alignments, what will happen is you will have an awareness of a way of communicating that is much more elevated. You will have words that you do not currently have access to, yes? That will open up an awareness and an understanding. This is also what is being discussed as when there is an indication that the beingness will become crystalline. It isn't actually that you are becoming crystals, but the way in which you transmit information begins to alter. And in that, we say all that to say that it is quite clear that there isn't the correct word to express this, but the discussion around the angelic is usually when there's a high vibration, yes, as individuals who perceive energies, who perceive beings and who interact with them. Oftentimes the signature will be similar to what is known as angelic, but straight angelic beings, if you were to categorize, as human beings like to categorize things quite clearly, have to do in a way with the earth levels and with the earth dimensional experience, yes? But that high vibration exists in many ways. The high vibration exists within the fairy realms, within elemental realms. It exists within each planetary expression. It exists in many ways. And when there's this high vibration, it all has to do with the way in which whom is perceiving what, yes? So this is why oftentimes information will match, but it doesn't quite match, because it has to do with the individual perceiving it and the way in which they understand information, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
It was nice to know. I have another question. This is a personal question, maybe astrological, but I'm gonna try to word it out regular terms. It's about the grounding that well, I have a strong water signature in my chart that sometimes I cannot control. So what do you see? What do you think I could do?
Yes, water is not intended to be controlled. Yes, it is intended to flow through. It carves things out. It creates its pathway. Yes, it's this understanding that when the water comes out of you, this is the discomfort. Yes, because when the water comes out of you or through you, there's a discrepancy with your relationship to being what carves. Yes, and this, of course, is over time. The earth is not carved in a moment. Yes. But over time, and there's discomfort with that, coming into a greater relationship with the way the water moves. There's also a strong connection here with your origin signature. The origin signature has to do with that moment of differentiation from source energy, that all individuals have an origin signature, yes? And this has to do with that. But the question really is, what is it within yourself that why is it that you feel you need to control it, yes?
Yeah. Because I tend to absorb a lot of energy, and then I don't even know what is mine and what is others people.
Yes, again, it is not a controlling, it is allowing to move through and flow through. If you try to dam it up to look at it, it will feel uncomfortable. You allow it to move through you, to flow through you, yes, and that is how it does not stay. So you don't need to absorb it, it just moves through you, yes? It is also a way of being your energetic signature, of you imprinting your water. And if your water is imprinted, if anything comes into your field, then what is happening is that they can be attuned to the signature that you wish to be presenting to them, rather than you being imprinted by the signature that they wish to be imprinting them, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And anything that you can tell me, any message for me?
Yes. Yes, there was a conversation that was occurring, and she is quite all right. Yes, she is quite all right. It was quite pivotal. It was quite important. She is quite all right. She's quite all right. It's quite important. It's very important to have that awareness. And there will be an invitation of connection with her here within the next 45 days. Yes, within the next 45 days. This will be quite important for you. Yes. Are you clear in the way in which you will be doing this?
No.
Yes, you will be doing this. You will have a sense of it. You will feel her in a way, yes, and you can write out the message, or you can simply tune into it. And this is happening more and more, where non-physical relationships with beings or energies or spirits, or however it is, we don't quite like that word. It's kind of an unusual word, but a person who existed and then is non-physical, and or beings, much more human individuals are becoming to have greater and most significant relationships with non-physical, yes? So sometimes that means relationships such as the one that Alexis and I have, where I am not incarnated in this generational experience, yes? However, for some individuals, they're having non-physical experiences with a loved one whom after they have no longer been in this physical body, earth, yes? This is happening more and more because there is this beautiful connection with being able to come into mission together to continue something in a different way, yes? And being able to share that with other individuals is quite important, yes?
Yes,
yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I get it now.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Simon.
Yes.
Hi, Simon. I'm Barbara Jean. I would like to know if you could tell me where I would be in my spiritual psychic development within the next couple years. I seem to have like a pain in my third eye, and I don't know what you can tell me related to that.
Yes. Sometimes we say things that are quite silly, and it's an uncomfortable thing to say things that are quite silly, yes? It is important, not that you said something quite silly, but Alexis becomes uncomfortable when she says things that she thinks are silly, even though I'm the one that is saying it. What is important, there had begun to be a very interesting relationship with the glands that are inside the center of the head, the pineal gland, and there's actually a non-physical crystalline gland that is inside of it. It is not able to be recognized in imagery or in physicality, but it's quite important. And the reason why the pineal gland is important is because it's crystalline structure that is within this piece, yes? And some individuals have a barrier around it in ways, but some of it has to do with chemical interference that occurred on the planet, and some of it has to do with energetic interference that occurred on the planet. And sometimes that throbbing that is the discomfort that is felt is because the mechanism around it is being broken away and being opened up so that you have more access to yourself. Yes.
Yeah.
And in this way, it will allow you to transmit more clearly, because at the moment you aren't always able to transmit most clearly. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. This will allow for you to transmit more clearly. Would you like us to assist you with this at this time?
Yes, please.
Yes. This is also an invitation for any of the other individuals that have this. Would any of you others like to be experiencing the same experience?
Yes.
Yes. If you would like to, you may receive this, and if you've not, you will not be forced to. Yes, this is an energetics that will enter your field, and you make the decision to allow it in. So, tuning into yourself, you may take a breath in. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and you will notice there to be a shifting within. Yes. Again, quite silly, but you can just sort of wiggle a little bit to allow for there to be a movement of your body. Yes.
Yes.
One more breath as we move that out. Oh, yes. Yes, there is a completion of that at this time.
Yes.
Yes, is there anything further?
Yes. Do you have a message for me?
Yes. Yes, there's a quite clear invitation for you to work with from the ground up. Yes. An aspect of this has to do with what you are building, yes, but it has to do with an individual. When you work with an individual, you're working from the ground up, yes? And this will allow for you the structure that you have been seeking in how to do the work, because you'd like to work with an individual for a long period of time, but you aren't quite sure how that would work out, yes? You'll be working from the ground up. Yes,
Okay.
Is this quite clear?
Okay. Not really. I tend to also get individuals that stay with me for a couple of years.
Yes.
Yet from the ground up, yeah, I'm not very clear on that with myself.
Yes. What is the foundational piece? What is your foundation for you? What is the most important for you?
That I'm able to help somebody to move forward and live their dream and help their life in whatever way that I can.
Yes, the foundational piece, the ground, is the relationships that they have with one another. It's quite easy for you because you know how to do that, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Most beings do not know how to be in relationship with one another. This is the ground up.
Okay.
This is the ground up. Invitation, you may do whatever it is you please, of course, but it will allow for there to be a different structure to the work that you do, which will allow for it to come into a fruition and into a ripening that can be quite beautiful, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to check in with Alexis. Is Alexis, how's she doing?
She is quite fine. We may continue.
Well, thank you, Simon. I was wondering if you have any messages for me.
Yes. There's a liberation of your beingness that is occurring. Yes, it is quite a beautiful thing to witness, is it not? To be able to be in a group and to be seen in the way and the capacity of which you are being seen, yes? This is quite important for you to retain this memory, a cellular memory, yes? There is also a question of the way that you are moving forward with truth, yes? It's quite important for you to broadcast yourself and to broadcast the way in which you relate to the world in the way in which feels correct. This will likely allow for that area within yourself that feels all truth must be known to be tempered so that it can be with what is most loving for all beings that you love, yes? And so you may broadcast what is most important and perhaps keep those things secret that needs to be kept secret. You may see them and not always share everything with everyone, yes? It is quite important to know truth, yes? And to be a most beautiful sovereign holder of truth is quite a privilege and an honor, yes? Yes, and being able to hold that in its light and hold it up to the light, because you are the light, yes? You are the light inside of the darkness, yes? And in that, allowing for it to come up and for it to be transmuted and allow for there to be a movement forward, yes?
Yeah.
Yes. And broadcasting the things that you do, yes? the passions that you have, the work that you do in a much grander way. This is where we'll allow for there to be more peace within your beingness, yes?
Okay. Now, I've dealt with I have a lot of energetic things in my body, and I'm just wondering, what's the best way to, I don't know if the word heal, from one perspective it's about healing, another perspective is just understanding what it is that's happening in this vessel that's been experienced as a challenge. I don't know if there's any advice with that or understanding.
Yes, allowing for there to be an even flow of energetics through your beingness. And when you meditate, do you meditate frequently enough?
No.
Is there a discomfort and a fear of what will happen when you do so?
Probably is.
Yes, Alexis suffers from this as well. It is quite an interesting thing. It is quite important for you to know that it is important for the energy to move through you, and your evolution will occur, as will hers, whether or not you'd like it or not, because you've chosen it. You've sovereignly chosen it, yes? The discomfort and the trepidation comes from the human vessel, which isn't actually completely the totality of you, yes?
Yeah.
Yes. And so allowing for yourself to tune into a meditative state, allowing for the flow, tune into the way the energy comes through you, tuning into how even does it feel, how does it come through, asking yourself to have a visual representation of your nervous system, asking yourself to have a visual representation of all of the systems of your body quite fluidly, yes? Being able to see where is there more attention that needs to be had, so there can be a movement of the energy through that nervous system, yes? And what we say is energy, we are not merely saying all energy, because everything is energy, yes? We're talking about specific connections that you have, yes? From your Lyrian star system, yes? These are the messages. Oh yes, this is quite important. You may remember this. You may remember this is quite important, yes? Of allowing this to come through your beingness, yes? In the regality that is quite important, yes?
Which star system did you?
The Lyrian star system.
Lyrian.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is quite important.
And is this the ancestral? Is this where I come from, or is this?
This is where you come from, but not where your physical body comes from. Yes.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
Lyrian. Interesting. I didn't know.
Yes.
I don't know of that. Okay. Is there anything more you can tell me about the Lyrian star system?
Yes, as you start to tune into that, yes, there's this beautifulness of what you were born. All of the things that you are learning here today is quite interesting, and this week that you are learning is quite helpful and quite interesting, because it allows for you to have a peek into the connections that you have, yes? This is an aspect of it in your chart. You will see it, and this is an aspect of what is unlocking the ability to communicate with them in a way that they have been attempting to communicate with you, yes? And so this is quite important to know, that as you allow for that flow to flow more easily, and for yourself to trust the physical vessel and trust the body, yes, and surrender into that experience, and allowing for yourself to always be discerning of the information that comes through. But you know, there would be quite familiarity when the energy comes through, yes?
Yeah.
Yes. And this will be important for yourself, but it will be important for your broadcast, yes?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Does anyone
Yeah.
checking with Alexis? How much more?
She is quite fine for the
She's
moment,
quite fine.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. Would you like to go?
Hi Simon, it's me again, Jen. Could you please give me some advice on how I can become more comfortable speaking and expressing myself and my voice?
Yes, it has to do with how much you would like for yourself to be known and seen for all that you are. If this is not comfortable, then it wouldn't matter anything else that you did, because you wouldn't be able to express yourself if you wouldn't like to be expressed. Is that more clear?
Yeah.
It's coming into greater relationship with your desire to be expressed and to be seen, yes? And then it will flow quite lovely, yes?
Thank you.
Yes.
And another question.
Yes.
Can you give me some perspective on how to not worry so much about my family? Because I have a big immediate family, and I feel extremely stressed out when I think of them, if anything were to happen with them.
Oh yes, because, well, you know that is an old thing. That is not something that happens in this lifetime. It already happened. Yes?
No? Okay.
Yes, you already experienced the total loss of your entire family. This was quite a long time ago in a different iteration of experience. And there's a residual echo that makes you feel as though you will lose them again. Not all of these individuals were incarnated at the same time, but that is the discomfort, because you know that pain and you do not want that pain again, yes? But you will not be having that pain again. That is not the life that you will be living in this lifetime. Sometimes we just need to say things quite clearly and quite plainly, yes? This will not be happening again. Allow that into your system. You will not be losing them all like that, all at once, where they all are just gone.
That can sink in.
Yes.
And I've heard that before.
Yes. When would you like to start believing it? This is most important. Know it as truth. It already happened. It is not currently happening. It already happened. It is not currently happening. This is something that could quite help you. Yes?
Yes. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
Last question for me.
Yes.
Do you have anything to say to me?
In a general sense, or specifically?
Can you give me some advice on how to proceed with, I don't know.
Yes, the openness of love is what is at hand here. Being open to being loved in a fullness way. This has to do with also the way in which you communicate, which you were indicating a desire to understand that more fully. And love cannot find you unless you allow yourself to be expressed most fully, yes?
Yes?
Yes, and so maybe it is time to do that, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I have a question. I'm wondering if I'm from a previous realm, if that's such a thing.
Yes, one that has collapsed in and exploded into something else. Is that what you mean by previous?
Yeah.
Yes. It is quite an interesting thing, yes, because when we think of time, things exist all at once, and there's a encapsulation of an experience, yes, and sometimes things will encapsulate. So in one way, they always exist, but is whether or not in the expanding now, is it evolving itself, or is it merely in its echo, yes?
Yes.
Yes, it is quite interesting. This isn't a negative or a positive thing, yes? It is, in a way, an evolutionary thing, and it is quite beautiful to know that everything always exists forevermore, whether or not it is current in its iteration right now, yes?
Yes.
So, yes, what a quite interesting insight, yes? Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm not sure how to ask this question. Can you tell me which galaxy or star that I'm from?
Just a moment. It's more of a dimensional experience than having to do with this realm. It wasn't from this dimensional experience, yes? It's from a different dimensional experience. These aren't as well understood, yes? Most human beings like to put numbers to them, but it's much more of a sensation of a dimensional experience, yes? And some dimensional experiences has to do with, in a way, stars, but different light energy, as what was discussed yesterday, a light energy. And in the light energy, it's a different sort of galaxy as such. It just presents itself differently, because this experience is multiverse. This galaxies have to do with their relationship with physicality, yes? And the different levels of physicality. And we were discussing some of the other beings that present themselves. They've been in a trajectory from physicality to non-locality and non-physicality in a different way, yes? And what we are discussing is something differently entirely, yes? What we are discussing is the dimensional experience of lightness, and that was the first iteration. That is the origin of your beingness, yes? It was light being energy, yes?
Yes.
Yes. And no, it was not alone. There's other light being energies that cohabitate with each other, yes? Is there anything further with that?
Well, so I was told once that I was from the Palladians, but I not exactly, I don't know, is that accurate?
Just a moment. It's an experience that you had, but it wasn't of consequence in the question in the way in which you're asking, yes? Because it was as though you were asking about the most important in a way, yes? The most, the strongest signature of it all, yes?
Yeah, I'm not understanding.
Yes, any being has more than one experience, yes? and it was most important to portray to you the dimension, the non-physical dimensionality of the experience of being a light being, yes? And yes, there's also an experience of the Pleiadian, but it wasn't something that was of strong significance in the way of the way in which you're portraying yourself right now. Does that more clearly? You may engage with that information if you'd like, but it isn't something that is necessary to uncover in a way, yes?
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to ask, hi Simon, this is Marcela again.
Yes.
I have a question, like, what does it mean when you are having conversations during your dreams? And, well, specifically, I have conversations, but then I notice as I'm doing this, I just cut it off from the dream. So if there's something that I need to know and how not to stop it.
Yes, you believe that you are stopping conversations as they are moving through?
Yes, because it's like I got scared, like, oh, who am I talking to? And then,
Yes.
because I'm conscious when I'm sleeping, so I feel that like somebody's talking to me, and then I respond and I say, oh, but then I don't remember exactly what the topic was.
Yes. It is quite important to know that you have the ability to connect to whether or not you allow for there to be sovereign connection with your energy, yes? And in doing that, especially when they're sleeping, there's a certain level of physical surrender that is occurring. This is why some individuals have difficulty sleeping, because they have an interesting relationship with surrender, yes? But this isn't the question at hand. The question at hand in this case is how in which you are communicating with others and how to allow for there to be a flow in a way that feels safety to you, yes?
Like others who? Real people?
Are they real people? Is that the question?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Yes, there's a communication that is occurring in the dreaming, and there's also a communication that is occurring in another realm. Yes, there are times some individuals are having. There's many different things that occur when a human being is sleeping. Yes, some of the times they are existing within their minds. Yes, and sorting out information within their minds, and other times they are actually moving into other dimensional realms and having interactions and such of that. Yes, it is quite important for you to know that you may make the discernment, you make the intentionality of being able to move through an information and being able to move through a clearness of, I would only like to interact with beings that have my most expansive experience in mind, yes? So that
Yes.
there is a level of understanding that is the boundary in which you keep, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Is that a completion at this time?
Yes, it's a completion. Thank you, Simon.
So any other questions? In the news here in humanhood, there's a lot of UFO things in the news. Seemingly, of course, that's been in our reality for a long time, but of course, it's coming a bit out now. And I'm been a bit skeptical in terms of the narrative that will be unfolded, and the general consensus of human news, I guess you'd say. What information would you give Simon regarding the UFO phenomenon, regarding at this point in time in our human timeline?
Yes, it's quite interesting. There are some of the informations that are coming through are in fact fabrication informations, and some of them are actual experience, yes? It is quite interesting because many of the interactions of ships that are occurring are actually not documented, which is quite interesting. Many of them occur in a different way. The ones that are the most odd, it is interesting, yes, because you're talking about physicality that becomes non-physical and then physical, because many of these ships are not merely physical, yes. Many of the devices that are utilized to traverse, yes, And this has to do with the way in which the species has evolved into not merely the human species, but the individual species that is having visitation and or otherwise. Yes, it has to do with the way in which they travel, has to do with the way in which they evolved. Yes, yes. So there is a culmination of information where there's more and more individuals that can feel what is true and what is not true, and the way in which to interact with that. But discernment is of the most importance at this time. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Simon, are you? Who are you? And pardon my.
Yes, we're in a non-physicality. We're in a non-physicality. We have each been in non-physicality. It is an interesting thing. There are some beings that do not have names to them. They merely have signatures to them, yes? Differentiated beings that have to do with certain dimensional realities. The way in which there's an understanding of the way that we move through dimensions is it isn't just one experience at once, which is why I'm able to ask the questions and answer the questions and have the interactions with all of you that we are able to have, because there's a non-locality, a non-physicality, a non-time experience, yes? Inside, outside of time, being able to move through all the dimensional experiences, which is quite an interesting thing. And there are several beings that are like this, but there isn't quite a name to it, yes? It merely is, yes?
Okay.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yes. Can you, is there a significance to us coming together right now and listening to you, Simon?
Yes, there is a significance. When any being comes together to hear something that is of their highest expression, they are choosing a different timeline, because you very easily could have been taking a nap or going on a hike or doing something else, yes? And this isn't just about our expression of this. This is other iterations. It is even choosing to be here in this experience for this week. There are moments, there's choice points that each of you always have, yes? And that allows for you, which timeline are you experiencing yourself on? Where are you moving towards? Yes, and this is an aspect of what is occurring. Yes, and this goes back to the way in which the question was asked in the very beginning of what is the purposeness of it, and having to do with that cycle of completion. Yes, of moving into this way of understanding yourself more as a crystalline being, and without any of the silliness that is talked about. Yes, with the understanding that it means that you are beginning to transmit information at a higher level. Yes, with each other, and this is something that you are able to do, and you can practice doing that transmitting, because you spent the afternoon transmitting information from the verbal way, and now you can tune into how do you transfer information in the energetic way. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Simon. And we had originally talked about an hour, I believe, and it's been an hour. And we want to thank you for communicating with us and answering these questions. It's been very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Hi.
Did you hear all that?
Yes. Do I remember all of it? Pieces. Most. Yeah, so how are we? Is there anything that you can, that way we have it. No, you can keep it going in that way. Yeah, if you want. Or do another one.
Whatever you want.
I need a toilet break.
What'd you say?
I need a toilet break.
Oh, please go ahead.
Is it
Yeah.
I think it's on the side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does everyone want a break for a
I'm
few?
gonna follow you.
I got to
Yeah.
use the restroom.
Yeah, me
so
too.
we can go ahead.